Could be a Zoom meeting.
Excuse me.
Okay, I went back to Jacob. So I got your message, I've shared with the chief. He came back, said, good deal. The rest of the recommendation is typed up, ready to go. I just need that final piece on the septic.
Okay, yeah.
Cheryl's name says Daniel Allen. Hi, Cheryl.
Will the real Daniel Allen please stand up?
There's two of them.
That's right. How are we doing on time, sir?
It's 5:30. Yep. it's
Okay,
time.
away we go. I call the meeting to order of the City Council work session for Monday, August the 17th. We've got Carrie with us this evening, so I'm going to move some of the things around a bit because she is in the midst of still preparing some post-meeting data for our friends at S&P. And so let's start first with the June financials. We had them published. Anybody have any questions on the financials for Carrie? Okay. Then we'll go to the first resolution, which is accepting the financial audit report presented by the Landmark PLC for the year ending December 31st, 2019. It's a good audit. Carrie, again, is here to answer any questions.
Well, I had a question. This is John. I understand that we're using them because of the bond issue rather than the governmental people. And so I wondered, does that mean we're going to use them in the years the bond issue is out, or is this just for the first year?
No, we'll probably continue using them, John.
And this is the second year that we
Oh,
used.
okay. Yeah. I had the impression that they get, I'm just going by recall, but it seems to me they got completed more quickly than the governmental folks used to.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the last time we had the state folks here, there was almost 3 months.
Yeah.
This year, they didn't even have to bother coming in because we've got everything online. All the invoices are scanned, everything's done. So any stuff they needed, Carrie was able to send it to them electronically. So it worked out well. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay.
I have a question, Mayor Christie. What is the cost impact of doing it outside versus using the Arkansas financial audit personnel? How does that impact us?
It was 16,000 something versus nothing.
Okay,
Problem with versus nothing on that side of it is we would not have the pleasant call that we had today with S&P because most of the rating companies, underwriters, et cetera, even our own municipal advisor are not big fans of the product that comes out of state. And certainly when they were here, we had some very pointed discussions with them because they just didn't seem to grasp the proper accounting in a government setting. You know, the group that was here 3 years ago,
Well,
did schools, didn't they?
yeah, their main auditor was a school, his specialty was schools, but the main reason is that they didn't even get finished with our 2017 audit until December of the following year. So had we still had been using them, we wouldn't have even had our 2019 audit yet. And that's one of the things that the analyst asked for today. So it was nice to be able to provide it to them.
Why would it take one entity so much longer than it would the other? I mean, are they asking for the same information, or one's government and one's private?
There it is, right there.
But
One's
one is
efficient, one isn't.
one is for profit and the other one is not.
Yep.
I'm not disputing the fact that we're doing that. I think it's prudent for us. I think it's good for the city, and it provides good references for any financial endeavors that we will need to pursue in the future. So I
Yeah,
was just looking for a point of information about the cost.
Sure.
as the mayor noted, they were here, legislative audit was here doing their field work for 3 months the last
Yes.
time they were here.
Yeah.
And they visited amongst themselves a lot. We had a lot of comments from people that work in this building that it sounded like they were visiting an awful lot. And
They were about as inefficient as they could be.
our landmark CPAs, even despite COVID and not being able to do on-site field work, they got the audit finished in record time.
And the city of Rogers uses Landmark as well, don't they?
Yes, Rogers uses landmark.
I observed their proficiencies in Centerton for 5 years, so I know what you're speaking.
Ah, they're there as well. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, we'll move on to the last piece. No, you don't have to stay for this because Daniel's here.
Okay.
Thank you. This afternoon, Carrie and I were interviewed by S&P Global Rating. Daniel hosted the call and our underwriters were there as well. We had provided a bunch of information ahead of time to Daniel, and they put together a 15-page PowerPoint presentation. I did the first 10, and then it was kind of a collaborative affair for the remaining. We also in advance had received a bunch of questions from them, which we answered and sent to them prior to the call. The call went for about 35 minutes. The young lady who was doing the interviewing was very impressed with the content. Had all sorts of nice things to say about the financial affairs of the city and the way in which we're heading as a city and working together. It was just a very, very good call. And with that, Daniel is with us. Do you want to highlight just some of it, if you would, sir? Are you muted? Daniel? Well, he's trying to unmute. I sent this to you in an email late this afternoon as soon as the call was finished. It's the actual slide deck so that you could see the type of information that we shared with them. Daniel? Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Better?
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry about that. You would think I would have figured this out by now. Okay, so the call with Standard & Poor's today, I would say went very, very well. You know, when they're used to dealing with, and Kristen made the comment that this is the first time that they've rated the city. You know, this is usually can be a bit of a painful process for staff. I would say it's been, I can't speak for Carrie, but it's been anything but that. The S&P had some questions, some fairly detailed questions regarding operations of the city, capital planning, financial policies and procedures, particularly as it relates to balance reserves and you know how the city budgets and budgets for break even or to have a surplus. So all of the work that, you know, the Carrie and mayor and staff have worked on over the last few years has really set it up to where this was good. Kristen did indicate that based on what she saw, and she can't speak for committee, but she mentioned a AA- rating. I would say that if I was a betting man, I would be very happy at a AA-. Given that the city has never issued debt before, there's no There's no track record for this procedure to work for the city of Bella Vista. So I would say don't be upset if it's an A+, but if it comes back at a AA-, like Kristen indicated, I think it's a huge win for the city. It's something that you can hang your hat on, that the bonds receive a AA-. I want to say Rogers is a AA-. So to put yourselves kind of on an equal footing from a debt rating on the sales and use tax, I think that's a big win, particularly in the days of COVID. Where we stand is that we should know Friday morning. They will go Standard & Poor's committee before they publish any rating. In the morning will give us a call draft report to review for accuracy. That report will get published sometime mid to late day Friday. And that would put us on schedule for distributing a preliminary official statement probably next Tuesday, for the underwriters to begin marketing the bonds to prospective investors. Puts us on track for offering the bonds Monday or Tuesday, September 1st, with a special meeting being late that evening or Wednesday the 2nd, probably mid-afternoon. But everything's going well. Market is being receptive. So I think you've seen a process that's taken a couple of years to get to this point. We're there. So money should be. There'll be a final sprint on the part of the city and the underwriters and lawyers, but we should have money in the bank early in October to get these projects completed.
So just to go back to the date, council members, Wayne sent out an email this afternoon advising you that the special meeting would be at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, September 2nd. However, Daniel has mentioned to me that since it will be a Zoom meeting, it would be great if we could have it on the afternoon of Tuesday, September the 1st. What time would you think that would have to be done, Daniel? Is it after the bonds are sold?
Yeah, it would be after the bonds are sold and Ryan Bowman can get the final prices and amounts and rates into the bond purchase agreement and the ordinance. So it would probably need to be something like this, like a 5:30-ish time frame. And I've got to call into him. He was unavailable. So if it's for you to execute the agreement, if that's not something that's on your schedules, then let's stick with the next day at 2 p.m.
So could you all have a look at your calendars, please, and let Wayne know? And then
I'm good. I'm good.
Available. Larry?
I'm okay that day. I'm okay, September 1.
Yes,
At
me too.
5:30.
Okay, Steve, you okay?
I think so. I'll
Okay.
double check here in a minute. Could you restate what bond ordinance is that the special meeting requires us to?
Yeah. So while the voters approved the tax and the issuance of the bonds are actually going to be legally issued under a bond ordinance, which is really where the commitment between the city and the investors comes in. That the city's going to make the payments are going to work as they are, and that requires council's final approval on rates and terms. So it's basically the final part of the election process for when voters approve the bonds and the repayment using the 1% sales tax.
So what am I looking for to understand whether we've gotten a great deal and that we're ready to proceed? What are the measure points that I have that would help me determine in or out?
So on that day, we'll be working with the underwriters that the city selected, Stevens and Cruz, working together. And so we will be, in the days leading up to that sale, we'll be working with them on what are the appropriate prices or interest rates that the market will take. And so we will be looking at comps. We'll be looking at what's going on in the market that day. Is there massive sell off? Is there something that's a geopolitical issue? And so we will be pushing them to get the lowest possible rates. And we'll come to you with a recommendation at the time of that meeting that we feel that the rates and terms are fair and appropriate and a basis for that.
Have you ever found yourself in a position where you couldn't make that recommendation?
Usually, no. We've always been able to find middle ground that worked for everybody. I mean, our job is to represent the city and to get the best deal for the city. And there is I would say there is always a level that clears the market because we might feel it's worth, say, a 2.1%, and the market feels it's worth 2.2. There is some middle ground, but there's a fair price that's fair, beneficial, that is fair to the city and also fair to the investors for the risk they're taking. And that's where, when we have an underwriting desk that does this and trades these bonds all the time. And so we'll be relying on their expertise and their market intelligence to determine, is the offer that the underwriters are making, is it fair?
Okay. Thank you.
Any
What
other
kind of-
questions?
What kind of rates are we seeing now on the bonds out there that are closing?
I can honestly tell you the rates are lower than I'd be willing to pay or willing to. On a blended basis, assuming not taking into account the mandatory redemptions, we're at a 235, 240. I think that number is probably on the conservative side. That's a blended rate. And keep in mind, we're going out 25 years. The 25 years gives us 2 times coverage of the current tax collections. And given the COVID crisis, while COVID has not impaired your sales taxes, it has hurt sales taxes across the board in many jurisdictions. And so investors are hesitant of what a recession is going to do. So we've structured it for 25 years to get the coverage. The payoff still is right about 10 and a half years. So it really still pays off the same, but it gives us more marketing ability to bring investors to the table at the lowest rates for the city.
History for 2008 us at all?
I think we actually are providing sales tax receipts all the way up through July. I don't think if we get August 1st of next week, we'll include it, because I mean we are showing real-time numbers to investors, and the benefit of that is that your numbers are continuing to be up. Year over year, July receipts were up, let's call it $50,000 or more compared to what you got in 2019. And so while people are working from home, it's still, I think it's a testament to just the stable tax base that you have in Bella Vista. You're not seeing the huge swings that some that have a lot of discretionary. You don't have people may not be buying the big screen TVs or some of the bigger purchases, but they are spending on day-to-day items. The other thing that's helping really from a big perspective is the internet sales tax. We're seeing huge amounts. I think it was in May 2020 versus May of 19. Those were up $25,000 in May, just related to internet sales tax. So while folks are away, they may not be out and about, they're still spending money. And so being able to capture those dollars that are being spent by residents in Bella Vista is going a long way to help investor confidence. Does it mean a basis point or 2 or 5? I don't know that it does, but in this market, it means the difference in getting your deal done and not, because there have not been a lot of sales tax transactions in the municipal market, primarily because there's so much unknown. Do we see a further recession? Do we see more job layoffs? And honestly, Northwest Arkansas has been resilient and is not experiencing some of the massive problems and budget shortfalls that other cities and states are experiencing.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any queries?
Well, I would think our timing, interest rate wise, is quite impeccable. They are really low.
Yes, that's true.
I would say the 10-year treasury today was back towards about 65 basis points. We are not, we were in the lows and we broke 50 basis points a few weeks ago. I think we're kind of range bound, but plus or minus 10 basis points, you're at some of the lowest cost all time. So I think you could not ask for really a better, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
All righty. Thank you, Daniel. If anybody thinks of anything else as we're going through the meeting, I believe you're going to stay for the entire meeting, Daniel?
I can.
Or do you need to attend to the family?
I was going to cook my wife dinner, but I'm happy to stick around.
Well, I think we'll let you go cook dinner. I don't want the wrath of Khan on me.
Today was the first day of school, so I imagine she's going to be wanting her dinner.
True. That's very true. All right. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks. You guys have a good evening. If you
You
think
too.
of anything
Take care.
in the meantime, just let the mayor know and we'll get you an answer.
Okey doke. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, the next.
Just the opposite of me. I told my wife I was going to cook dinner, and she said, "No, that's okay. Go ahead, get on."
Okay, the next resolution, approving the appointment of William G. Myers to complete the unexpired term of Lila Smith on the City of Bella Vista Public Library Advisory Board. In your packet, there's a very extensive resume from Mr. Myers. Unfortunately, Mrs. Smith and her husband had to return back to Minnesota. They wanted to be closer to the kids. And so the term will expire on December 31st, 2022. Are there any questions at all? Okay, the next resolution, establishing salaries for mayor, city council member, and the city clerk effective January the 1st, 2021. Again, this is something that we do by ordinance every 2 years. And
By resolution,
I'm sorry?
by resolution.
Yeah, by resolution. I'm sorry, not ordinance. Yes. No, there's an ordinance telling us that we have to do this.
Oh, yes,
Okay, but we do it by resolution.
right.
This increase is over for the next 2 years, so it's 2021 and 2022. And we're pretty sure that this coming year is going to be 2.5%, and we're looking at 2.5% for the following year. So it's an increase of 5%. And the impact on the bottom line, on the bottom salary line, is $8,278. And this is supported by both HR and finance. HR actually did a comparison to other cities, and there was no need to do any kind of adjustment to any salaries whatsoever. And so this is just a COLA of 2.5 for 2 years. Any thoughts at all?
I guess my concern is that we've had a lot of our people in Bella Vista and in the Northwest Arkansas area that have been without work. I would be inclined to say, do not increase our salaries at all for the next 2 years. And while it would be nice to have a raise, I think in keeping with some of the, I guess the desperation of many of the people around us, I would suggest that we forego this for this period.
Well, I don't agree with you, but nevertheless, okay. Linda?
Yeah, I'm second what Larry said. I'm concerned that although the total amount is fairly small, that we've got departments like our community development department that is grossly overworked. And I just am concerned that we should tend to other things in the city before we worry about ourselves.
What other things do you think we should tend to?
Well, overworked people in community development, and that they need additional bodies to
Doug,
handle
you-
the building, to handle all the building permits, et cetera.
Doug, do you need additional bodies?
Well, we could always use an additional person, but we're just seeing permits and code infractions slightly tick up over the last couple months. Building permits are up, inspections are up. So I'm just getting some feedback from some of the staff that their inspections and work logs are much higher than they've been the last few months. But other than that, we're doing good.
So,
Okay.
so the question would be, Doug, is that creating some workload overload for more than one of your employees in either inspections or in code enforcement?
Yes, each week we're getting small amounts of overtime. It could probably be much more, but we're trying to keep it to less than an hour a week for some of the inspectors and code officers. Kay, our trails person, is now working 3 days a week in planning, and so as soon as she gets up and running, that's going to help us out a little bit. But we're still experiencing a little bit more work than they've been used to over the last 6 months.
And you've got Cheyenne doing the reviews, and is Taylor up to full speed now?
Yes, sir. She is. She's doing good.
That's our junior planner. Anybody else?
So is there a possibility of tabling this until the same time next year? And we can reevaluate the environment?
Doug, we can do this anytime we want. You know, the ordinance said we should do it by the 1st of July. However, it gives us the wiggle room that we can address this anytime we want. So if you want to put it off, you can put it off. I don't think my wife will be very happy, but that's fine.
I just think in the environment today,
Yeah.
as was already mentioned, I just think it would be the prudent thing to do.
So should we give all the employees a COLA, or should we just have
This is-
nothing for anybody
this is-
in the city?
This is about the mayor, the city council members, and the city clerk, not the employees of the city.
Okay, remember, this is my sole income. Okay, Linda?
No, I thought we had to set something before election date, or I might be incorrect.
No. Jason?
Okay,
No, you have an ordinance that says that every 2 years, you will, by July 1st, you will evaluate salaries for elected officials. And then it says if you don't, that it's presumed to be the same. So
Okay.
basically, there's no harm, no foul. It tells you you're supposed to, but if you don't, it's the same. And you're not precluded from addressing salaries at any time or as many times as you want to address them. The only rule I can tell you is that during anybody's term, the salary cannot be reduced unless the elected official requests it.
Right.
That's the
Right.
law. So once it's set and cannot go down unless it's requested by the elected official.
Anybody else? Was?
Could we also break it down, make it 3 separate resolutions? You, Wayne, and us,
Yes, we could do that too.
okay?
Peter, I didn't follow what the proposal was. Are you saying these numbers are everything going up 2.5%?
5% because we only do it every 2 years, John. So
Oh,
that's for
okay.
2021 and 2022.
Yeah,
So it's going to go up 5% for 2021 and 2022, or 2.5?
No, it's 2.5% for each year.
Well, that's not what it says. What it says is it just sets new salaries that become effective on January 1. And so it would be whatever it is you set immediately for as long until you decide to change it again. There's no time limit in there. There's no ratcheting up on year 2. I wasn't requested to put any of that in there. So it's just new numbers that we inserted.
I can tell you, it was 2.5 for each year based on input from HR. Because
That would be, if it's going to be 102,438 beginning in 2021. That's a 2020. So then you're saying is what that would be.
One of you asked about doing 3 resolutions. And yes, you can do 3 resolutions, but if you want to modify any of these, you can just do that through an amendment. In other words, if you want to see the alderman or city council member salaries stay the same and the others increase or vice versa, you could do an appropriate amendment, and we could still do all this in one resolution, or we can break it up into 3. I'm happy to do however you want to do it.
My inclination is still to pass for the elected officials for the next 2 years. That's of staff that board, the elected inclined to forego that.
Understand. Meeting I made for a weekend.
Recognize well paid for that time.
Okay,
So city employees, it's 2.5 and I guess 2.5. Is that right? Is that code?
that's what we're going to build into the 21 budget. So we could change this, instead of having it 5%, we can break it into 2 years, 2.5% for 21 and 2.5% for 22.
Something to think about.
Okay, well, let me know, please. Okay, the next is approving the mayor's appointment of Aaron Rowe to the Bella Vista Arts Council to fill an unexpired term resulting from the resignation of Janelle Redzlatic. Janelle works for Crystal Bridges, and the demands on her job have increased. And I don't know if you're familiar with Aaron Rowe. I first met her, she came to Rotary maybe a year ago. She's written a book on Arkansas cuisine, finding old recipes and putting them in the book, etc. It's a very interesting read, plus she has many other talents. So she would be filling in until April the 22nd, 2021. Okay, move on. It's a resolution amending the 2020 city budget to authorize 1 additional part-time police officer to be funded with existing budgeted funds. Chief, do you want to address it?
Sure. So what we're trying to do is develop a part-time officer program with the police department. We run into trouble staffing a lot of events because we just can't keep the staff on hand throughout the year to deal with officers getting sick, officers on vacation, bike events, things like that draw heavy on the staff. And so we're going to develop a part-time officer program. These will be, we're going to take certified officers, mostly retired officers who still want to be in law enforcement. So they'll be well-trained. These aren't going to be new officers. And they will fit within our policy, abide by our policy and our training. The idea is to pay them a flat rate of $19 an hour. Okay, they'll probably work an average of a 10-hour shift a week, probably on average throughout the year to cover things. The only other expense we're going to have is a lot fee for part-time officers, about $59 a month. And then I believe maybe $200 annually for workers' comp. Okay, so all of this stuff will be built into future budgets. So when I come to you in 2021, I'll probably ask, my goal is to get 3 part-time officers on board. Okay, and my goal would be to get that funded on an annual basis through the approval of city council. So that'll be part of my proposal coming up in 2021, 2022, and then it'll be funded annually as city council sees fit. This will also relieve some of our overtime. I think it'll be, well, not a total wash. If you're talking about paying an officer $19 an hour for an average of 1 10-hour shift a week, as opposed to that would relieve an officer on overtime at usually about anywhere from $30 to $32 or $3 an hour. You can see where that will actually dollar for dollar save the city some money. So it'll help us to be able to absorb and deal with these large events that we have to come, and mostly bike events and things like that come through the city that are very hard on the staff as far as overtime and not getting the sleep they need between shifts. So what I'm proposing though is this year with some vacancy savings, okay, is bring, if I can afford it within my existing budget, and I'll look at those numbers, is to start the program this year, probably bring one officer on board and get them spun up and running with my existing funds, not asking for additional money this year.
I should mention that this body would also be able to be the bailiff in court. Currently, what happens is we have to pull a command staff person, either Captain Cook or Lieutenant Harmon, and they have to actually take the bailiff responsibilities. Frankly, that's a very high-priced bailiff, and they should be doing other work. And if we can have a part-time officer going in, I think that will help the court as well, court costs. Any questions for Chief?
So what you're saying, Chief, with this program, it would help us with special events, particularly relating to the trails and bike programs as we're seeing coming into Bella Vista. So this is a part of our costs of having that additional amenity in the city available for outside folks.
Sure, yeah, and then, you know, this year's a little different because a lot of things have been canceled, but normally throughout our normal year, we do anywhere from half a dozen to 8 or 9 big bike events that draw really heavy on the staff, fireworks events, arts and crafts festival, all of these things that really make it, well, we are able to handle it, makes it difficult on officers. So yes, as you mentioned, as we grow, this is just part of trying to find ways to meet the needs of the city without necessarily adding full-time staff, which can become quite expensive. So this will help put off full-time staff numbers, or, you know, for a period of time, because we can supplement them with these part-time officers.
I think that's a good program.
Do such events, question, do such events that require additional police or EMT support, do they go through a permitting process? Do they have to ask permission to draw on our resources that way?
Yes, they do. They work with us with Cassie throughout the year. She's sort of our coordinator. They'll work with us. They don't just dump it on us. Many times we do request some funding through some of the organizations, depending on who they are. But some of them we just do because we believe it's just part of the city and it's part of our responsibility, and it's sort of built into my overtime budget. But yes, we do try with some of the big events, especially if they're for-profit or they're making some money. We do ask for some money in return at times. But there are times when we just absorb the cost because they're going to have the event anyways many times. And we're responsible for the safety, and there's so many street crossings, and it's only going to get worse with the other trails as well, that we just have a responsibility to make sure that it happens safely.
Well, thank you for that. I think that kind of that point of they would have the event anyway is kind of what I'm poking on a little bit there. And that is, it seems like if somebody's going to hold an event within the city limits of Bella Vista, that they need to really have permission to do that. Is that not an absolute?
No. The only permit at the moment that I'm aware of, Jason, is a parade permit.
That's correct. I mean, people can gather, they've got a right to gather. If they request extra security, or I should say extra law enforcement, that's when they coordinate with the chief, and sometimes these organizations will offer to pay. I'm not entirely sure. Chief certainly knows more about that. But we do have special parade permits if they're going to be using the public right of way. Things like we've had bicycle races that have been on the streets, that kind of thing, where there's going to be some use of public facility, then there is a type of permit that we do have. But it's not everything.
An example, Steve, is every year on the craft fair, we actually sign a contract with them and they pay for the police. Okay, on to page 2. An ordinance that is very familiar to you. We do it every year. It's waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of street, salt and sand based on price and availability by informal price quotes through March of 2021. In your packet, as well as the ordinance, there's a memo from Mike Button. And basically, he's just saying it's stockpiling. And, you know, we're not the biggest customer for a lot of these vendors that actually sell sand and salt. And I can remember 2015, I think, we had a couple of snowstorms and we were running really, really thin on being able to have enough product. And we couldn't get it because the vendors just wouldn't talk to us. However, now we have 2 sand and salt storage areas, plus an area that is it's asphalt up at the street building. So if need be, we can also store it outside. Any questions at all?
Nope.
We'll probably go to third and final on this one so Mike can begin work. The final is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a 3-year lease contract with Stronghold Data LLC in an amount not to exceed $17,769.81 for the lease of Dell computers and associated equipment. You'll note it's less than 20, but because it's a lease, the council must approve it. I can tell you that we do not buy computers because the life is so short. At the end of it, we'd have boat hangers or boat anchors and we wouldn't be able to do anything with them. So Carrie studied it, I think it was a year ago, John. She did a lease buy analysis.
Yeah, we've done this for 2 years.
Yeah. So this is our second year doing this. Our goal is to not have any computers that are in excess of 5 years old.
Yeah, no, it's a good move. And this is in the budget as well, isn't it?
That's
Yes, it
correct.
is.
It's budgeted, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we voted in the budget, so.
So what is the breakdown? There's Dell Latitude 3510 and some other ones in there. How many laptops are we talking about? How many boxes? How many tablets? What's the breakdown? You can't, without going to the Dell website, I don't know that I can tell that we're looking at 3 Dell Latitude 3510s, but I don't know what they are. Are those tablets?
Yeah, we have a couple different types of laptops quoted. The 3510s are the most economical model, and we try and have 3 spare laptops ready to go because sometimes we'll have special events. Like the library is good to have special events with the community, and they'll ask, hey, do you have an additional laptop or 2? And we try and keep 3 around in case there's an emergency or someone has a computer that dies and we need something replaced immediately. Also, I know Dispatch uses them for their training program. So that's what those are for. We have 16 desktops available. Those are going to be standard desktops. And I believe the other 2 laptops, one is for Mike Button, and the other one is for Kay Curry out at CDS. She's in this new planning role, and this will help get her on par with the build like the other 2 planners have.
There's Mobile Precision.
Yeah, the Mobile Precision is for Kay. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for John? Okay, let's go into discussion. We all received an email from a resident inquiring about limiting the hunting inside the city limits. Currently, bow hunting is permitted. And I'm trying to find the lady's name. It's not on the letter, but I do have her email. And we've been going back and forth with her. I asked Doug to get in touch with Jim Maury to find out just how many accidents, deer accidents, does he see on a year basis. Doug, I believe he said he sees 100, and he calculates that he probably only sees 70%. He doesn't see the full 100%.
That's correct. The 100 that he sees is, he thinks that's about 70% of the accidents in Bella Vista.
Okay. And we usually have at least one police that has an encounter with a deer every year. She is putting together a proposal that I think is going to be something, trying to help the deer migrate or something. But then I asked Doug to get in touch with Game and Fish, and he shared with you a letter that we received back from Mark Hutchins, who's the Assistant Chief of the Wildlife Management Division. He's also a certified wildlife biologist. Doug, do you want to take us through some of the highlights of that letter, please?
Yeah, Mark talked about what can happen to a deer herd when their population is not managed properly. And he referenced the blue tongue disease that happened over in Pea Ridge when they banned hunting in their park a few years ago, and said that that did a pretty good number on their deer herd. So people, if something like that happened here, you would see starving, emaciated deer running around trying to eat your gardens and flower beds more than you do now. So he just was a big proponent of managing the numbers with bow hunting, and didn't mention accidents here that he was aware of. So he spoke highly of us keeping that as it is.
He also mentioned that Benton County is part of the chronic wasting disease management zone. It's specific to the deer family. Bucks tend to be more susceptible to the disease, and they're more likely to spread the disease for the same reason through dispersal. All that said, hunting is a critical component to Game and Fish's ability to manage this disease. So I haven't put anything on the table because I thought maybe we should talk about this first. Who would like to kick it off? Linda?
Do we have an idea of how many deer are harvested in Bella Vista every year?
I don't.
Don't you have to report when you take one or not?
No.
You do report that, but it's tracked by zone and county, not by city that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And as many years as I've been here, and historically, we don't lose very many deer to bow and arrow hunters. They're out there, but they got to get relatively close. And I would say you got fewer deer going down with a bow hunter than you do with a car.
I would agree with that.
I think the POA has something already, do they not, Doug? Where they're saying you can't be under 50 yards?
50 yards from a house or a trail.
Okay.
Most bow hunting shots are 30 yards or less, straight down from a deer stand.
Okay.
So that 50-yard rule, that's actually a POA rule and not a city ordinance.
Correct.
Yeah.
So is the hunting, it's only allowed on POA properties, is that right?
It's all over.
It's
I
all-
can't confirm.
Well, I mean, in your front yard?
Well, that's 50 yards from the house.
Okay.
It's not
That would
limited,
cover that.
Doug, it's not limited to common property. It's any property owner as long as you meet the other qualifications. But let me also say this. I don't know that I copied everyone on this, but the city cannot, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission through the state constitution are the ones that have really sole control over the regulation of hunting and fishing. What the city council can do, as you have done with, say, firearms, you've restricted the discharge of firearms. You didn't say you can't hunt with a gun. You've limited the discharge of firearms, which has the practical effect of meaning you really couldn't hunt with a center fire weapon. So same thing with bow and arrow. The most you could do, which would have a practical effect, is just restrict the discharge of archery equipment. And if you did that, then you'd have the effect of meaning you could not archery hunt. But we could not pass an ordinance that just outlawed hunting. We could not do that. But you get around it, basically.
Counselor, the ordinance that would restrict archery would also restrict archery practice in your backyard, would it not?
Well, it depends on how you write it. It depends on what you do. You could limit archery use to only target practice in a controlled area or something. We have an exception to our firearms ordinance if it's at a gun range, for example. So you could tailor something as you see fit.
With the sparse development in many areas of the city and with the large portion of common properties that we have, there are many areas for hunting that's available. Some of them, albeit difficult to access because the roads are not improved, and that's not a complaint. It's just a fact. There's no houses there, so the roads may be grown over and with underbrush. But there are areas that are suitable for it. I've received 2 complaints, and not actually to me, but it was a general complaint on one of the neighborhood websites that said they saw a fox with an arrow through it and another animal with an arrow through it, probably the likely result of a teenager as opposed to an archer or hunter associated event.
I wouldn't go limiting it to a teenager. I wouldn't go there.
Well, I would hope that an adult would have more sense than attempting to.
They'd have more sense hunting away from a house than anywhere near a house.
Yeah.
You hunt, Larry, you know there's some wonderful hunters out there who don't have a clue. If the
There
bush
are.
moves, shoot it. You know that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So I mentioned before, I spend a lot of time on the trails over here by my house, and I don't ride a bike. I walk with a pack because I backpack and stuff. And I actually have a big orange color on my pack just for that specific reason. So somebody doesn't mistake me. I mean, you wouldn't think they would, but like I said, there are a lot of anxious hunters. But I'm not opposed to hunting at all. I don't deer hunt personally. My brother does, and his whole family does every year. It's a big deal. But it is a little bit of a concern to me, with all the bikers down in the hollers and the ravines and things like that. But on the other hand, I mean, we do have, well, first of all, we have large tracts of POA property where there's plenty of room, and there are properties that have acreage, that have plenty of room for somebody to hunt deer on that if they would like to. I just don't know how you get down to slicing and dicing, cutting it up where you can do it here and do it there, but not here, So it is an interesting conversation to a degree. But the POA, they still favor the hunting, isn't that correct?
I don't think we reached out to them. Doug, did you reach out to them at all?
I spoke to Mike Taggart, but I didn't get an official statement from the POA.
Based upon the letter from the Fish and Game Commission in response to Doug Tapp's inquiry, I think the rationale and the message provided in that letter clearly suggests that we should not restrict bow hunting in the city, that it does a service to provide a healthiness to the deer herd that's here, which will deteriorate and degenerate over time if we allow them to just simply continue to reproduce. There are many communities that I've experienced where they've actually had specialized hunts with selected sharpshooters to cull deer herds because of the lack of reduction by normal hunting as we allow it here.
Pause.
And if you think about it, if bow hunters were using common sense, you wouldn't even see them in a neighborhood. And yet we're getting complaints because in some cases they're in your backyard. If they were using Larry's theory, and they should be, that's only common sense, this wouldn't even come up. Right. But because they don't use common sense, it's like everything else, a handful are screwing it up for the group.
Okay, anybody else want to weigh in?
I would just add also, with regard to the POA that, yeah, they have the capability to ban hunting on their property if they do so, but they've considered this as well. And I think for all the reasons Larry articulated and that came to us from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, they think the better for the community is to allow the bow hunters to coexist within the guidelines that they've already stated, that they have to be 50 yards away from a trail or a home. So that represents, I think, their position that they haven't banned hunting, and they don't seem inclined to do that. So that's their position. And I think the city probably has a similar position. We don't have a lot of public property to speak to. I'm not inclined to try to limit somebody's ability to shoot a bow in their backyard. I don't think that's, a rational thing to do. So I think this is one of those areas where we're going to have an intersection of two communities. There's a community of trail users. There's a community of hunters, and they're going to have to coexist. And that's as far as it needs to go, probably, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And the bow hunting, I guess it's limited to the season, though, correct?
Yes.
Bow hunting is
That's what I
using your
meant.
bow. Yeah, using your bow in the backyard is, it could be done anytime you wish to.
No, that's true. I understand that, but I mean actual hunting.
Right.
That's limited. How long is the window? What's the duration?
The
For
window
bow and
for,
arrow, it's a couple of months.
the window
Is it?
for bow and arrow is pretty long. It closes during the gun season in Arkansas as in other states. And then it may reopen again after the gun season is over through early January typically.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you.
I think one final comment, Mayor, and that is that we have a significant number of trails here today that we didn't have a year or two ago. A bow hunter and the environment for deer are not going to be in and on the trails likely. I'm doubtful that the deer will use the trails even for traveling because of the human scent that's there. And it's likely that the trails have disturbed the animal population characteristics where they forage, where they sleep and bed down. So that bow hunters and the trails are going to be separated because the deer are going to be separated from the trails.
Okay, thanks for that. Anybody else? All right, Doug, can you give us an update, please, on Tanyard and Little Sugar Creek bridges? We've had a development.
Yes, sir. NDOT recently let us know that that project went to bid. So it's both bridges and the tunnel around the corner from City Hall, and city's portion of that project that includes the bike lanes went up pretty good price from $400,000 to $789,000. So they are waiting on us to try to find those funds. Mayor, I know that I've seen emails between you and the Walton Family Foundation, and it's my understanding that the Walton Family Foundation and Trailblazers is trying to find some additional funds from other grants that was not used to that project. RDOT has let me know that this project has already gone to bid, came in higher than it was anticipated. And if we decide the project's going to move forward, construction estimated to start in September. Whether or not that includes the bike lanes, that's going to be up to the city.
So what happened was the original funding was actually $600,000, $400 for us and $200 for Trailblazers. And then it came in at $789,000 instead of the 600. So the delta is 189. So I've been discussing this with the Walton Family Foundation, and they're currently huddled trying to find a solution for us. But if need be, I guess we just drop the trails and we just continue on with the bridges. And that should bring it back in line.
I think that would be a poor choice on our part. Did we budget our share in our capital projects list?
No, because we don't have a share, Larry. 600,000 was the grant to us. Sorry, 400,000 was the grant to us from the Walton Family Foundation. And separately, the Walton Family Foundation gave a $200,000 grant to Trailblazers for their participation in the project as well. So we had no exposure at all. I don't have $189,000 or $178,000 or whatever that I can throw at this. So that's the reason why I went back to the Walton Family Foundation, asking if they can find a solution for us, a financial solution.
I get that we were having a surplus this year because of the increase in sales tax revenue.
Yeah, but you have to look at your capital programs and everything else out 5 years. And if you remember, we went through that exercise last year. Carrie's going through it right now. And years 3, 4, and 5, we were dropping below the 25% that we by ordinance have to keep on hand.
I
You
thought
can't
that
just,
was, go ahead.
sorry, so you can't just look at, well, we have this surplus here, so it'll cover that, because we have to make sure that we have enough in our reserves, because we can't go below 25%.
But I thought we only went below 25% if we bought the Centerton water system.
No. The Centerton water system has nothing to do with our financial policies that were passed in 2018.
Well,
At
I
that time, what's that?
I do understand that, but the statements that we received from Carrie showed that if we bought the Centerton water system, that would put us in the red or below the 25% value if that acquisition had occurred. And so I'm
Yes, that's true. That's true. Or we would have had to find the money elsewhere. And I'll tell you right now, I'm very concerned about the 1 cent, or excuse me, the half-cent tax that's going to be on the ballot. It's issue number 1. If that is not approved, we will lose $618,000 from the state for our streets. That's half our resurfacing budget of 1.2 million.
well,
Am I-
don't we plug an additional $1 million in from the general fund?
Larry, that is the million.
Okay.
I think Larry's conflating the amount we use for paving versus the street department budget.
Yeah, the street department budget is basically salaries and equipment, oil, gravel, that kind of thing. But for the outside contractors, which is where you get the biggest bang for your buck on resurfacing, that's 1.2 million. And if that half cent doesn't go through, we're in a world of hurt, because we have to keep our streets up.
Yep.
Okay, so stand by for more. We'll see what happens. I'll continue my discussion with the Walton Family Foundation. Doug, there's some good news on the horizon for Sunset.
That's correct. They have started, the contractor has started doing some waterproofing to the back of the building. And as soon as that gets applied midweek, or they're working on it now, they're going to start filling that with gravel, so that those two processes have to happen simultaneously, so that the gravel actually holds the waterproofing. So they will spend some time hauling in gravel, backfilling quite a bit of earth or open space there. And then it's my understanding they're going to start work on the retaining walls. So work has begun.
Hallelujah.
Will the
Get a
contractor,
timeline.
will the contractor, Doug, be replacing the water line, or will that be done by the POA?
It's my understanding the contractor is going to do it. Now, if they work something out to pay the POA to do it, that's not something I'm aware of. It's my understanding.
There's water going into the place already, Doug.
But there's a water line on Sunset, I thought that was lost when the road caved away. And
That's-
one of the work elements is to replace that line. I don't know how it affects service to the building, but I thought that was compromised as well. And that was our reason for not giving them a occupancy permit.
No, the reason, no. You're absolutely correct. The line was damaged when the road collapsed. However, they have water now, and it's my understanding, Doug, that they came in the back way as opposed to going down the road. That's the
No,
reason.
Not aware of that.
Okay, well, let's double check, please, because I mean, we're being told that everything's finished and ready to go other than the waterproofing. And they've got their sewer in already and it's connected across the street, or excuse me, underneath 71. So let's just double check, but I think they have water. If not, then it would be the POA that would have to bring the water in, at least to the site, and then perhaps the contractor runs pipes and connects. I don't think the POA would actually connect to the building, but Larry, you were in the POA water system for a while, so you probably know better than any of us how it connects.
The question I thought is that with the blowout of the water line along Sunset, that needed to be replaced and restored to its integrity. I didn't know if the contractor was working under the direction of the POA to do that, or whether the POA was actually doing it at a cost to the contractor because it was a failure of the construction site.
Doug, will you reach out to John Sainsbury, please, and ask him that question?
Sure.
And then send a note out to the council members?
Sure.
Okay.
And I had a bet on which was going to get done first, Sunset or the I-49 bypass.
Gonna be Sunset.
I might lose.
Sunset.
Does anyone
Okay.
know how long that roundabout was in operation? Was it about 2 years? maybe?
About that, yep.
Yeah.
And where you see the traffic light, that's going to be permanent. So when you have to get up on I-49 and you're southbound on 71, you will go underneath the overpass, which is not built yet. And then you will come to the traffic lights and you'll have to turn left if you want to go up the ramp. So they're already preparing us for that. Okay, the final topic that's not on your agenda, but Larry, I know that you hosted a meeting on the 2040 comprehensive plan. We'll put that hopefully on the agenda for next month. Graham Smith from Gould Evans was not able to participate this month. Larry, do you want to give us an update on what happened?
We had a noticed meeting for any councilman interested. We had 3 present plus 2 candidates running for Ward 2, position 1, I think it is, was his position. And another citizen member, and the new junior planner was present as well. I think we had a good conversation. Probably didn't end up with any conclusions, but more questions about whether we need all of the changes that are suggested in the edit or not, or whether those in one part are adequate for the whole thing. I guess I would invite Doug or Linda to make any comments appropriately as well.
Linda?
I just felt that we weren't hired to write it, and while there are some, what I would call deficiencies, it's never going to be perfect, and it's time to push it to vote it up or down.
Okay. Doug?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'll be honest with you, I'm actually taking some other steps to do a little more research and have some more conversation. Because Larry has a lot of detail, and when you're doing a comprehensive plan, I mean, some members of the council maybe have had experience. I probably had less so. but to familiarize myself more with just how much detail should be included in a comprehensive plan. I just kind of take a step back and look at the the sum that we dedicated to getting that done, and then I look at some of the additional things that Larry's looking at, and in order to fulfill some of the things that he's looking, the detail, it probably would have cost us a lot more money to take those additional steps. So anyway, where my position is right now, I'm still looking at it.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay.
Before we close, I do have a question. The fire training facility. So I read it in the paper. We couldn't lease the property. We actually had to purchase it, and it was for some about $100,000. So is that being tied into the bond issue cost, or are we taking it out of city funds? How are we?
No. Okay. It's built into the bond. We have 120,000 built into the bond budget for a land purchase. The only reason that we're purchasing it as opposed to continuing with the lease is I don't think it's prudent to put a couple of $1 million or so into a building on a leased piece of land. That just doesn't make sense. I want to own the land.
It was part of a law or something too, right? That you can't build on leased property.
You've got the problem of making improvements to private property, and you've also got a problem in the usage of the bond funds in that way. If you recall here a couple of months ago, you all adopted a reimbursement resolution. So even if this closed or we got this done before the bond proceeds were available, you could reimburse the city out of those bond proceeds. So don't forget that. That's one of the plans. There's not been a final word yet, and maybe Chief Sims wants to talk. Maybe he knows more, but we're still looking at that particular piece of property. So you will see that come before you for approval when it's ready. If there's other news otherwise, I guess you'd also learn about that. But you will all have to approve that deal before it happens.
That's what I was wondering about,
Yeah.
how it would move forward without having a conversation with the city council first.
No, that has to go through city council. I can tell you that they're taking some sampling. They're looking at perk testing. They're looking at water drainage, the ability to put a septic there. So there's a lot of things that are still in the flux, and CEI is driving that for us. So we're hopeful that before the end of this week, we will have a report from them, which I'll share with you.
Okay.
Anybody got anything?
One final request would be as perhaps an email from Doug Tapp with the update on the under 11 program, where we're at of crossings, the Metfield to Blowing Springs trail, and any other trails that we've got going on. And then I've got a question about what's going on along Huntley Lane. There's private property along there east of the maintenance and water office of the POA. And it looks like they're doing a lot in terms of a bike obstacle course on that private property. There's work trucks in there. There's all sorts of dirt that's been hauled in. There's plastic conduit that was been delivered to the site and used somewhere because it's disappeared. Anyone know what's going on in there?
Yes, it's a gravity. I'm trying to remember the right name. Steve, you might know it. It's a gravity course for very high-end mountain bikers. The land was purchased by Stuart and Tom Walton, and they're developing it on their own. It's not part of our Little Sugar, and we will have no responsibility for maintenance.
Okay. I knew it was private property and it was up for sale and the for sale sign went away. So I didn't know if we had a lease or someone had purchased it, but it's, thanks.
No, yeah, you bet.
And you know what, I'm not trying to lengthen anything, but I do have one more thing. Sorry, Larry, were you finished?
Yes,
We all received a letter about burning on a lot. It was out Edinburgh off of Glasgow. I drove out, yesterday just to take a look at it. From the description in the letter, it sounded like a builder had cleared a lot or pushed over trees and created, I guess, a large burn pile. I actually went to the gentleman's address first. I had to look around to find where he was talking about, and it was on a road. I think it sort of would have been south from his house. It wasn't really that close to his home, but he would have had to probably have driven by it. How large of a burn pile are residents allowed, or not even residents, but a builder allowed to have? Because most lots I know that are cleared, all that timber, if you will, is hauled off. But there was a presence of a couple of pretty large piles on a couple of those cleared lots. It looks like it could have been probably much more of a size than we maybe would be allow a builder or even a resident to have. Do we? I've got the name of the street. I just took a photo of it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but how large of a pile can a builder burn? I mean, can they just push over trees in the middle of a cleared lot and burn them? I mean, I know they're supposed to contact the fire department first and let them know, but.
That's right.
I'm not aware of any size limit. I mean, Steve, are you familiar with I mean, I think they can clear a lot and burn it. I think some lots may have more trees than others, but Steve may be able to give us a little more enlightenment on that.
Well, that's correct. As long as they have, what we ask them to have is at least 50 foot of defensible space around that lot clear, which the ones I've been on and looked at it, because people have called and complained about it, they've had a good, nice defensible space around that lot.
Okay.
So yes, there's not really a size of what you can and can't burn, as long as they have somebody there and they got good defensible space.
Okay, well, I would have to say that there was a lot of space around the pile, it was large. So I was curious, because if a resident gets in touch with you, you like to find out what the kind of the rules, regulations are. So, you can have a response form. You can give them an answer how the city, manages something like that. So.
Yeah, the mayor and I have talked about this before, and we've also had a conversation with Doug Tapp about trying to come up with a different alternative that we can offer to builders that are clearing these lots. And I know that's kind of still in the working process. Is that right, man?
That's right.
So
Yeah,
just something different.
The pile is usually determined by the type of trees. So if you've got a lot that's full of oak and walnut, they're going to cut them and haul off if you can find a logger that'll take 2 loads. If it's full of sycamores and ash, they're going to cut it all down, move it to the middle and burn it. And it's typically a couple-day burn. Chief, how long would you say that? 3-day burn?
I'd agree with that. If they were to do it right, I think there's a time frame, about 2 weeks. If they let it sit for 2 weeks, it'd burn quicker. But I know sometimes they don't have time to let it sit. They're trying to get something built on it. So there is a time frame to burn that, which would be a whole lot easier and better. But
Yeah, I would say that this area was kind of isolated, really, out Edinburgh. There aren't really a lot of residential homes that appear to be really close. But man, on a street like what I live in, if you clear a lot and do that, you get a lot more phone calls.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, this has been, there's been a number of complaints on this issue and on the smoke pollution in particular. This isn't a one-time thing. There's been a number of them the last couple of years. Well, some people brought up the safety issue that burned during the night, maybe it's smoldering, whatever. But the smoke issue, there's been a lot of complaints about that. It would be good if we could come up with some other alternative.
Yeah, our biggest problem is there's no stump dump anymore.
Yeah.
So if they're going to be hauling it away, it gets to be rather expensive. And in fact, I don't even know where they take it. Do you, Steve?
I don't.
Because I hear that possibly some of it's going across the border. And you cannot take wood across a state line. So I don't know where they take it, quite frankly.
The tree trimmers that I've dealt with recently have hauled it to Springdale. Apparently,
Have they? Okay.
they can pay for dump there.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. Anybody got anything else? All righty, we'll see you at the AML conference. It'll be quite different this year. Zooming it, and hopefully everybody's registered. You have to go into, the confirmation email that you get back, and they give you a link to AML. Every day you have to sign in there, the same as you did when you first set up your registration. And the reason is to ensure that only registered people are getting through onto the portal to attend the sessions. So I just thought I'd share that with you because it wasn't in any of the literature I saw. And so I called AML today.
Is there any, I know some of the cities are meeting as a group where the alderman would meet a group here and a group there. But would it be desirable to, let's say, use the courtroom with the big screen and set it up there that a number of folks could come down if they'd like to and sit there and view the program?
No, there's no provision for that at all, Larry. Similar to, the request that we would get together to discuss the 2040 comp plan if it was coming up this month. When I spoke to the medical community, they were dead set against it. Just don't do it because the virus is not under control. It's managing us. We're not managing it yet. And so you're much better off just to be in the privacy of your home and attending the conference. Anything else? All right. We'll see you later in the week on the AML. Thanks for attending. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
See you, Woz.